Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, or good afternoon to those of you who might be on the East Coast. This is the welcome to our Supervision of Peer Workforce Conference. I'm Cynthia Lieberman, the Communications Manager for SHARE. This session is why supervising peers is a good thing. This is being presented by Dr. Phillip Williams-Cooke. He is a New York State certified peer specialist, provisional, and a certified recovery peer advocate with 13 years of experience providing peer support to hundreds of peers in New York State. Phillip serves on several boards and committees promoting the values and the principles of peer support and empowering peers in numerous ways to live successful self-directed lives. Phillips works part-time at Fountain House in Baltic Street, AEH, and is an ordained minister. So just a quick piece of business here. All the sessions today are being recorded. So I want to make sure you know that it's being recorded, and all of the presentations will be available at a later time. I think that Dr. Cook or Reverend Phillip might want to put his PowerPoint in the chat, but you'll also be able to get it later on our website. If you have any questions or technical problems, send me a note directly in the chat and I'll hook you up. And so if you could please mute yourself now, remain muted. At the end of the session, there'll be an evaluation form that I'll put in the chat. And if you could just evaluate and help us make this an even more effective or better, or get the feedback on this session, we'd really appreciate it. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reverend Cooke.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to turn my camera off for the most of it because it's having some issues. But I just want everyone to see me before I turn it off. Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for attending this session. I hope we all learned something, valuable and useful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. There we go. So the title of this workshop is why supervising peers is a good thing. Why is it not advancing? Yeah, sorry about that. Let me try again.
By the way, if you have any questions for him, we're gonna hold them and you can just put them in the in the chat at the end, and we'll.
I had all this worked out, and now I'm having problems. So just bear with me here while I relocate it.
One of the great things about this conference is, I'm seeing that people in the chat are introducing themselves in the chat room, and it allows us to create a bigger community and support each other and connect with each other. And I think that's just another great value. We have 550, I think, participants, which is quite a bit more than last time. And I think that's awesome. I put our social media, while he's doing that, turn the camera off for a minute. I'm going to put social media in our chat box. So if anybody wants to tag about it or talk about it, if you want to put your social media in it, you're welcome to do so. If you want to share the love with each other and us, it's all good.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're good. So again, why supervising peers is a good thing. So first I want to start out by giving a definition of supervision. So according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, they define supervision as a professional and collaborative activity between a supervisor and a worker, and in which the supervisor provides guidance and support to the worker to promote competent and ethical delivery of services and supports through the continuing development of the worker's application of accepted professional peer work knowledge, skills, and values. I know it's a very wordy definition, but basically, in layman's terms, supervision to me is both professional and it's collaborative, where a supervisor and a supervisee, they work together to promote values of peer support through knowledge, honing and developing skill sets, and promoting and peer values. Okay, why is it not moving? Yeah, for some reason it's not advancing.
Left arrow or right arrow?
Yeah, I was pressing down before and now it's not doing it.
Huh. Do you want to put it in the chat room and I'll upload it real quick?
Okay.
And you can, and I'll just advance when you advise. How's that?
Sounds good. How do I
just,
put
you know what, email it to me real quick, and you can go back and put your screen back up and keep talking, and then I'll switch over once you can put your definition up if you want to keep talking. Just email it to me.
Okay, I'm gonna do that now.
Technology.
Yeah, it's technology, yeah.
Joy, oh joy. I like your definition though.
SAMHSA came up with some, usually come up with some really good definitions.
Does it, yeah, okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
What's your last name, Cynthia?
It's Cynthia at shareselfhelp.org. Shareselfhelp.org.
That's Cynthia at share
self-help.
Self-help.
.org.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll get it any minute.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, a little tech snag here.
Yeah. I mean, I had this perfect
it was working. It was working when we tested it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was working when it's.
In the meantime, if anybody wants to speak up and talk about that definition while we get this worked out, you might want to, like maybe Holly or someone. I just know Holly's name. That's the only reason why I'm calling you out, Holly, just for fun.
Yeah, for some reason it's not letting me submit it because it has a bunch of images in it.
Okay, I tell you what, just go ahead and keep. I don't know what else to do. Why don't you close it and reopen it?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I might have to do it the old-fashioned way, instead of showing the whole screen.
Yeah, that's fine. Do that. Yeah, just show it with the rest of the. I hate when this stuff happens. You can't help it though. Sometimes things happen.
Yeah, me too.
And just so everyone here, I wanted to welcome you again, and keep in mind that at the end we'll have a little bit of a space for you to have your Q&A if you have any questions. And while he's doing that.
Okay, so looks like I'm gonna have to show it this way and just
make it full screen. I mean, you're good. I can see it. We can see it. It's good.
All right. Okay, so sorry about that. So what I'd like to talk about is next is what is peer supervision, beyond the definition that was given. According to SAMHSA, a supervisor must be knowledgeable about peer values, recovery principles, and core concepts of peer support in order to be an effective supervisor. And SAMHSA came out with 8 principles of peer supervision in 2016. And I'm going to start listing them now. So the first one is Um, Supervision involves action. In other words, doing something or in the process of doing something. So it's an action, something that, you know, will require us doing something. It's not a role. It's definitely not hierarchy that, you know, one person is above someone else, and we'll get there a little later. Supervision is a strength-based process. That means that you know, everyone's gifts and talents and abilities are validated and honed and cultivated and celebrated as well. Um, and by the way, I believe we're all experts in our own way because we may have similar life experiences, but some of those life experiences might be different. So we consider them all valid. Supervision does not propagate nor embrace the deficit-based model used in many clinical and treatment settings. Deficit, I know in the clinical model, from my observations in my own life, it's always like, well, you're inadequate, it's not enough, you're lacking something. So that's the deficit-based model. So peer support and peer supervision is not about that. Supervision enhances and develops the unique knowledge and skills necessary for successful peer practice. As I mentioned previously, you know, we all have our unique lived experiences that have been proven valuable in the work that we do. And out of that lived experience, you know, we go through various trainings. You know, one is Academy of Peer Services here in New York State. You know, there are others across the country that really talks about, you know, the peer support movement, the culture, you know, our values and principles. And so, you know, in supervision, you know, that knowledge and that skill set is, you know, is cultivated. You know, we're constantly learning and, you know, and growing in our knowledge, but also in our recovery as well, and all that is combined together. Supervision provides a space of comfort for peer professionals to address ethical dilemmas and boundary issues freely without negative consequences for the peer who reports. I know it's something that is still an ongoing issue with many of us, especially, I mean, you heard the whistleblower who, you know, made known a practice on issue. They may, you know, cause some like moral dilemma, you know, for the society as whole. And, you know, oftentimes when whistleblowers do that, you know, they're oftentimes subject to, you know, some sort of retaliatory action, you know, which is not legal and it's not moral, I feel. And so, you know, we're hoping with peer supervision that it will be a space for, you know, for fellow peer professionals to address those concerns, you know, freely without something happening to them negatively. Okay, supervision engages peer professionals in strengthening the peer recovery support services program, or PRSS. Um, forgot to put a website in here, but SAMHSA came up with this PRSS program. I will put that I'll put that link in the chat towards the end. Okay, next slide. Supervision promotes a systematic environment or culture that develops and cultivates recovery instead of demanding perfection or not addressing behavior concerns at the moment they arise. I think this is very important. So you may ask yourself, like, you know, when am I in recovery? When does it start? I know that's a question that many folks have been thinking about as they start their journey. And what I learned from the Recovery Coach Academy, which is a program that started in Connecticut, the Connecticut Center for Addiction Recovery, at the Recovery Coach Academy. And they define recovery as, they say that recovery begins when you say so. So it doesn't matter what everyone else thinks, but when you say you're in recovery, according to the Recovery Coach Academy at CCAR, that's when you're in recovery, when you say so. And it eliminates the barrier for perfection, because recovery, as you're probably aware, it's a journey. It's like running a marathon. Supervision clarifies organizational systems, structures, and processes without negating the principles of peer support and recovery. So in other words, when you get employed and do the orientation, I believe the language of how, the agency organization is, what in terms of, how the staff that works there, and for better or for worse, the hierarchical structure, how work flows, happens. I believe that it should be in language that, everyone can understand, because there's so many, acronyms floating around, that, many of us probably don't even know the meaning of. Some of them I still don't know the meaning of, and have to get used to spelling them out. I think it is very important for us to spell out acronyms. And that's part of making things easier for the peer workforce. Supervision supports self-care as opposed to promoting a competitive environment in which productivity is front and center in the workplace, which can lead to things like burnout, jealousy, or resentment. And there is a mutual accountability between the supervisor and the peer professional, and I should have put fellow peer professional. That was a mistake. Supervision is not about being the boss over someone else. It's not hierarchical. We all bring our own truths, lived experience into it. That's what mutual accountability is, that we're accountable to each other when we're doing this work. And I accidentally put that twice. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now let's talk about what peer supervision isn't. And when I first started in peer work, this kind of tripped me up. Because it tripped me up. So helping a peer, like I hear this phrase a lot. And according to the Oxford Dictionary, it says helping could mean, sorry, come on. Right. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, helping is defined as to make it easier for someone to do something by offering one services or resources. Oftentimes, the word helping has been equated with doing something for someone else, usually without collaboration. So I oftentimes have to say to others that I don't think peers are necessarily helping as to sort of being like a guide, because one of the principles of peer support is person-centeredness, meaning that our fellow peers that we work with, they're at the center of their recovery. So we want to make sure not to say things like, this is what I think you should do. This is what you ought to do and how to do it, with no input, from the person that you're working with. Peer supervision is definitely not a program model. And a program model is an idealized structure of policies and procedures, operation in the workplace that employees must follow. Usually this model is in line with the mission and vision of the agency or organization. And more often than not, this program model, does not embrace, peer support. And that could cause, a lot of clashes between the supervisor, especially if they're a non-peer supervisor, and the peer professional. Also, the supervision from a clinical standpoint usually focuses on diagnoses or deficits. Diagnoses, identifications of the nature of illnesses, injuries, diseases, or other problems, by observing or examining symptoms. And in deficits, a lack of something or someone, usually someone or something is inadequate, or losses. So this, I feel, could be very damaging, not just as peer professionals, but as people. That focus, that labeling, historically has caused a lot of emotional damage, trauma, sometimes, physical, issues. Peer supervision is not a hierarchical structure, meaning that, there's, it's sort of like the top-down approach, if you will, meaning that a policy or regulation may come from the top and then trickles down to the bottom. Historically, peer support professionals, have lived or are living with a lot of stigma just because, the clinical or medical model, oftentimes is focused on, your diagnosis or your deficits. And as soon as you get diagnosed, bam, for the most part, that's what, clinicians often zero in on. And so that, I believe that also plays a part, unfortunately, in the hierarchical structure. Peer supervision is not treatment compliance, especially if that treatment is forced upon a peer by the clinical establishment. And this is a technique that's probably been around, for many, many years. And I think publications like the DSM, has played a part in this as well. And as I mentioned before, when I gave the definition of diagnoses, the focus is usually on illness or, disease. If you have these certain symptoms, oh, well, you're going to be diagnosed with this. And then there's a sort of treatment that goes along with the diagnoses. Medication compliance monitoring. So what does that mean? Monitoring when medication is taken, which is usually on a fixed and rigid schedule. And more often than not, this schedule, the peer doesn't even have a say in, negotiating, the schedule. If it says so on the bottle, that's when you have to take it. And if you don't, you skip out, sometimes it could be, consequences. Not a good thing. Peer supervision is not monitoring individuals' behavior or the way a person reacts to different situations, whether it's coming from outside oneself or inside oneself, and how a person expresses him or herself with various different emotions. So I believe this is bad, because just as bad as monitoring when someone take their their medication. So that means that's the focus, diagnoses, symptoms, from Freud up onto the DSM. Individual behavior has been used oftentimes in the establishment of diagnoses and treatment plans. Peer supervision is not case management. I've heard this many times from fellow peer professionals where they said, they've been co-opted as, junior clinicians, meaning they have a caseload and you have to fill out, hundreds and hundreds of forms, and things like that. And lastly, peer supervision is not answering the question, what is wrong with you? And I know oftentimes, we all maybe, perhaps I know I have from time to time, may say to our friends or fellow peers that we work with, man, what's wrong with you? That question has carried a lot of negative connotations. So the question in according to peer support values is what happened to you? For instance, traumatic events. An event is something that happens to someone. It doesn't say that there's something wrong with you. It's an event that happened to you that perhaps reshape your life in a way that in a way that either you don't feel comfortable with, or that it's a bump in the road. So that is what peer supervision is not. Okay, why is supervision needed in the peer support workforce? I'm going to push this back a little bit. So according to the Center of Excellence in Peer Support, which is based out of the Waterloo, Wellington, Ontario, Canada area, there are several reasons why supervision is needed in the peer workforce. Among those are peer support professionals struggle with isolation and role strain, especially when they are the only peer staff person in their agency organization, which more often than not tends to be the case. Yeah, I mean, when you're the only peer staff in your agency, I know for me, I felt like I couldn't go to my assigned supervisor and talk about that, because now I feel like I opening the door to my supervisor saying, well, maybe you need to go to the hospital, maybe there's something wrong, maybe you need to go to talk to your therapist or your psychiatrist, or if they feel it's bad enough, or maybe you need to spend some time in the hospital. So that had a negative effect on me, not just as a peer professional, but as someone in recovery. Number two, peer support professionals tend to struggle with the lack of role clarity. As I said earlier, role clarity seems to be a big roadblock for us as peer professionals, especially if the agency organization that we work for is the first time that they're hiring peer professionals, and they themselves, may not, have working knowledge of the values of peer support or, recovery values. And so in their mind, they're thinking that, hey, we'll make this new peer staffer, a caseworker or a junior clinician. And then, the peer, gets stuck, in that role simply because of, where they work. Peer worker roles tend to be implemented at random without full support from the entire agency or organization. Man, that's a tough one for me. I experienced this during my early years, and as I said before, because the agency organization that may not have a working knowledge of the peer support culture, values, and principles. it's easy for them to not understand, what the peer staff, wants to do, and as a result, that it can cause some conflict because now you got, the clinical model or the medical model versus the peer support model. Okay, so what are the fundamentals of supervision? Supervisors understand peer roles and practices. Sorry, just looking through my notes here. A supervisor knows about and understands that there are a variety of peer support jobs in existence. There's a lot of different titles, and they each serve, well, I mean, I think they kind of serve a different purpose. At the same time, the ultimate goal is, letting the peer know, I'm your support, I'm your guide, we're going to work this out together. Some roles are some peer jobs you probably heard of: peer bridger, peer navigator, a peer respite worker. So those are just a few examples. A supervisor have working knowledge about the core competencies of peer support. Usually, these core competencies, come from, different training programs. I know in New York State, they have the biggest one is, one of the bigger ones, excuse me, is the Academy of Peer Services, which was started in either 2014 or 2015. And they have, 13 core courses, two prerequisites that prospective certified peer specialist will take, and it covers, basically peer values, recovery values, and things like that. And then there's others in New York City. There's, Thrive NYC, Harry the Harp. So, and you can probably think of some on the top of your head in your own city or state where peer specialists get trained. A supervisor knows about and understands specific peer support jobs of the person he or she is supervising. A supervisor can learn or is willing to learn more about the fundamentals of peer support and peer roles by participating in trainings designed for peer support professionals, like this conference, researching and or reading literature or listening to audio-visual material about how peer support professionals deliver recovery supports to their fellow peers, and then learning the core competencies of peer support. Next, supervisors advocate for the integration of peer support professionals in the workplace. Supervisors educate workforce staff about the peer support roles and practices with assistance from peer support professionals. Supervisors help create and maintain opportunities for peer support professionals to interact with other staff members on a regular basis. And supervisors work with agencies or organizational leadership to create more favorable working conditions for peer support professionals. And as peer support professionals, they can play a major role in this work as well. Third, supervisors provide a space to address ethical concerns and boundary issues. Peer support professionals have been trained about ethics and follow a code of ethics that have been adopted by the state in which they're credentialized to work. So usually when you take a peer specialist training course, one of the modules will specifically talk about ethics, and those ethics are usually set up by the state in which you're credentialized, meaning there's, a certification board usually comes up with those guidelines. Supervisors review agency code of conduct with supervisees on a regular basis. Peer support professionals are expected to follow both their code of conduct, meaning the code of conduct that is associated with your credential, and the agency's code of conduct. And the nature of peer support means that boundary issues can be fluid, i.e. may change or be adjusted from time to time, which can create opportunities for reflection with supervisors and or more experienced colleagues. Supervisors recognize the connections between behavioral health conditions and trauma, health disparities, and social inequality. Supervisors embrace holistic points of view when working with peers. In other words, peers are more than their diagnoses or addictions. And I have to say that again. We are more than our diagnoses. We are more than our addictions. Supervisors recognize that there are multiple pathways to recovery. Supervisors validate and recognize that there are numerous socioeconomic classifications. For example, race, ethnicity, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, blue collar, white collar. That can be applied to a given individual, a group of people, or a subset of a group of people. Supervisors also recognize that such classifications may overlap with one another and are conscious of systematic discrimination, prejudice, or disadvantage within various institutions. Supervisors provide comfort spaces for peer support professionals to address issues such as poverty, trauma, disparity, and that includes pay disparity as well, prejudice and discrimination. And this list is not exhausted, it's just some examples. Supervisors have a recovery, wow, sorry, hang on. Yeah, supervisors have a recovery orientation and model recovery-oriented practices. Supervisors may endorse and model peer support and recovery-oriented practices and values. They believe that the peer support workforce will grow and develop professionally. Supervisors see barriers or difficulties as learning opportunities and structure those opportunities to encourage growth and development amongst peer professionals, as well as supervisors themselves. Supervisors support the development and cultivation of the peer support professional goals, both individually and collectively. And they support the integration of peer professionals and recovery values into the organizational structure of where they work. And supervisors support the development of unique knowledge and skills needed for peer support practices. Okay. So what are the challenges to supervising peer support professionals? So from a peer supervisor perspective, many peer support professionals lack supervision training and may not have experience with supervising other staff. I know in New York State, through the New York State Office of Mental Health, there's been conversation about this. Although there's no certification currently for peer supervision, the Academy of Peer Services have made long strides to ensure that there is some training. As of right now, to my knowledge, there are currently two classes, modules in APS, Academy of Peer Services, gearing towards peer supervision. That's a baby step, but hopefully as time go on, there would be, actual certification for peer staff to be certified as peer professionals. Non-peer professionals and staff may have limited to no knowledge about peer roles or practices. A significant number of agencies and organizations may not be aligned with recovery-based values, practices, and the peer culture, whether that be in part or in whole. And I mentioned earlier that it oftentimes create tension between clinical staff and peer staff, because oftentimes their values and their concepts are different. Okay, next slide. Now, for the challenges for non-peer supervisors. Supervisors may lack experience working with peer professionals. So just like for peer supervisors, non-peer supervisors may lack experience working with peer staff as well. I would probably think a little more so than peer staff, simply because many non-peer staff, including supervisors, are trained based on the clinical medical model. And that's the next point I'm going to make. Supervisors' approach to how to provide services may be primarily based on the clinical or medical model, as I said before, which is oftentimes based on illness, disease, diagnoses, symptom management, and treatment. Non-peer professionals and staff may lack working knowledge of peer roles in practice. Supervisors may have challenges in regard to integrating peer professionals' recovery values in treatment or predominantly clinical settings. Because, as I said earlier, their approach to services may primarily be based on the medical model. So what are the benefits of supervision? So for peer professionals, that would be providing opportunities to reflect on peer support values and practices. One of the ways that we can do that, and it oftentimes is required to maintain our certification as peer specialists, is that enrolling and taking continuing education credits. Another benefit, supervision, it delivers better outcomes through learning that comes from exploring and discussing workplace issues with fellow peer professionals. Another benefit, it enhances problem-solving skills and collaboration with fellow peer professionals. I know in my own life, a lot of things I've learned in the workforce was by trial and error, but I'm very grateful that I was able to work with, other peer staff, other peers as well, and, pulling our knowledge together and, come up with ideas to solve problems, not just in the workplace, but the whole, behavioral health system. Another benefit, improves clarity and objectivity when decisions are made. And that comes with, ongoing discussion about problems and concerns that may arise. And I believe that, that's key to, making good decisions. Supervisors empowers and motivates peer professionals, which can lead to increases in productivity and employee satisfaction. And I also believe that empowerment and motivation can include, taking care, self-care. Because, burnout is so prevalent, not just in peer support, but I think in any profession where, productivity is regarded higher than making sure that, we get proper sleep, that we eat right, that we, handle the, the inner and outer stresses of our lives. Now, there's some benefits for the agency and organization as well when it comes to peer supervision. Supervision can be a tool that can be used to achieve the agency's, mission and vision, which embraces the values of peers and principles of peer support. Supervision can increase work productivity and help manage and maintain resources. So, once the agency or organization embraces the values and principles of peer support, more often than not, the peer staff would feel that their lived experience, their